You are now locked into Blocks to Bags with Sebu Mesfin
and Mickey Tasfaye. Our mission, build the best business podcast in Europe.
and you're coming on the journey with us
So take a seat and enjoy the ride.
as we reveal business hacks
Fascinating stories,
and insider tips from
leading founders,
investors
creators.
and operators.
Ready to tap in?
We got you.
Here's what you can expect from today's show.
If you're building something and you do not understand the value of what you're building, the actual value and where it lies and where that can go, don't have conversations with investors.
Talk about WordPress and e-commerce shops. I think for a lot of our generation of entrepreneurs, that's actually where people started. I remember I started my first hustle by building websites.
Building a camel in the long run is going to be a better bet than focusing on building a unicorn.
My boss ever got paid, it was literally like you can believe. Seb was doing marketing and I used to love writing. And he's like, yo, there's a guy, he will pay £50 to write a 300-word blog. No way. No way.
One of the reasons I built Entrepreneur Network was because I wanted the things that were being built for Africa to stay in Africa. And so you can come and invest, fine with that, but it's staying here. Don't tell them to go and set up, shop in Silicon Valley. No, we're not. Actually, we're based in Rwanda. Thank you very much.
Yes, my people. Welcome back to another episode of Blocks to Bags. I'm your co-host Seb, and today we have a fantastic guest joining us.
Yes, we do, bro. Yeah, we got a crazy guest today. An entrepreneur, innovator, a true global citizen. She's worked and lived all around the world. She's already built and sold 2 tech companies, and to cap it all off, just a couple of months ago, she was recognized by Forbes, joining an amazing group of exceptional people across the world. Let's give it up, obviously, for our friend, the talented, the awesome Kimberly Ofori. What's up, Kimberly?
I am pushing you guys to be my hype man because this is a great introduction.
It's only truth, man. Only truth. How are you doing, Kimberly? It's been a minute since I last saw you.
I know. Well, the last time you saw me was at Money 2020 last year in Amsterdam, getting about 1 year almost. I'm doing great. I'm doing excellent, actually. Thanks.
Yeah, the last time Seb and I both saw you was in Amsterdam. You were chopping it up on stage, just dropping the lines, stage presence, killing it. So it's beautiful to have you join us on the show today. Welcome. And you know what, Kimberly, I'm gonna go straight into the question because we're so hyped to have you here. And really, where I want to start with is just kind of getting to know where your story starts from. So let me ask you, what's your earliest memory of trying to get to the bag?
Oh, wow.
We go straight in.
I mean, you're going straight in. I really have never really chased or aspired to make a lot of money. But what I did always have was a huge level of curiosity. And I think that is what led me to build things and to find ways to solve problems that in result made money. So I think that for me, the earliest kind of recollection of that was when I discovered the internet and when I was able to kind of have internet time alone in my brother's room. Like we had time slots with the big computer.
Oh, the classic.
You have to wait for your slot because the internet router, like, wow.
Are we talking, this is the dial-up days, or are we talking broadband?
I mean,
oh my God.
So it's like, is my mom on the phone? Is anybody, are we good? And I remember I loved writing. I was really kind of the quiet girl, always reading, always writing in my room. My mom was always forcing me to go out and make friends, like do something, right? But if I didn't...
That's so interesting. Sounds like the reverse of most people,
I know. And I'm still the same, only I can unlock kind of that side of me when I have to be in public. But I really understood early on the power of words and writing because of what it did for me. And so I had a blog, a WordPress blog, and I remember the first time that I thought about monetization before I even knew it was a word was, I think WordPress at the time, they started to launch WooCommerce or something. And I don't know if it was called WooCommerce at the time, but I saw people, they were like, oh, they're making like, $100 a week on just people reading the blog. I was like, wait a minute, I'm writing, And so I remember, going deep in, this is where the curiosity comes in, going deep in reading every article, and there weren't many, to be fair, but reading every article, finding out what does monetization look like? What do people like to read? What is the kind of the trick of, translating your knowledge into something that people actually want to pay for? So I think that was the first time that I realized that there's always a potential of making money as long as you understand who it's value, what you're solving is valuable and who it's valuable for. And so really the game is always going to be, who are you connecting your product or service with? And if you can nail that, make sure that you're offering it to the people who see value in it, there's always money to be made. And I think that's what actually transcended to all of the other things that I did. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I was really the girl who did I did web shops. I did, internet shopping. I made build things with my hand. I was shipping things to the post office with a little shopping cart, sending post orders. I was always looking for new ways to reinvent myself. Again, not because of the money. The money was cool. It was rewarding, but it was about, wow, what else can I do with the kind of the new knowledge that I have?
I think for me as well, you talk about WordPress and e-commerce shops. I think for a lot of our generation of entrepreneurs, that's actually where people started. I remember I started my first hustle by building websites on WordPress, and it was such a cool thing when I figured out how to do this, right?
Literally. Or when I first ever got paid, was literally like you, Kimberly. Seb was doing marketing, and I used to love writing. And he's like, yo, there's a guy, he'll pay you £50 to write a 300-word blog. I said, no way. No way.
People pay for this. I do it again.
And imagine, I'm just there at uni having to write thousands of words just to survive. And now you're telling me someone's going to pay?
For your life.
My God. But you know what, though? I love that, though, because I think that's actually something that people kind of forget a little bit nowadays. I know Seb and I talk about this a lot. Skill sets and passion is so important. And I think sometimes it's so easy to kind of get your drivers confused and you kind of start focusing on the output a lot more.
Every journey has a moment where it almost falls apart. Now, you've already achieved so much in your life, and we just wanted to take it back to, what was that one big moment for you when it all nearly fell apart?
Oh my gosh. Do you know what? I honestly believe that you have multiple moments like this in life, everything. I almost want to say every 10 years. Every 10 years, it's like this cycle. It's oh, you're going up too much. Let's humble you for a minute, right?
Stay humble.
No, so it's really about, I feel like, after I dabbled a little bit in the internet, but I wasn't making entrepreneurship my career, right? So I went into banking and finance, then I became a consultant, then I did a bunch of other things in corporate because that's kind of the secure way to make money, right? But there was always this side of me that felt like there's more to me and I couldn't place my finger on it. And so I would always try to do something on the side. It's funny how I was this quiet, very collected girl in my room, but I was very fired up inside. I had a lot that I wanted to give and wanted to bring to the world, and I just didn't know what it was. And so when I moved to Dubai for a few years, and that was my last corporate job until I moved to Spain. And in Spain, I had some money saved up, so I didn't have to work immediately, but it wasn't like I was rich, right? So I was going to have to do something at some point. So I did my first Shopify store before it was a thing. They were so small, nobody knew Shopify. And I was like, oh, cool. I don't have to build it in WooCommerce and they have all of these things automated. Let me use this. And I started selling baby clothes and stuff. And I remember I Queen random because I saw a market in my neighborhood. So anyway, actually everything that I did launch, I always hit some early form of product market fit without me understanding what that meant at the time. Because I had an understanding of how to market things. I had an understanding what pricing looked like. And I also because I was so obsessed and curious of finding how to do things right, usually had a leg up to people who were just trying things. And so I remember the first few websites, they made money quite instantly. I wasn't making bank, but I was making money. And then I ran into the first startup that I had and sold, which was the talent recruitment platform that was really just actually a listing platform that got out of hand, where, I was putting expats on the platform who had a similar journey as mine. I was living in this small area near Marbella in Spain, but not quite Marbella. I was like with the old people. And so there was nothing there. And I couldn't get a job in this kind of vibe that I was in. I didn't want to go back to the corporate rat race. I wanted to stay close to the beach. Like my house was literally at the beach. So I was like, I need to find a way to do this and still remain in this environment. And so I was like, internet business. So anyways, forward. Talent platform started listing people's people's profiles online, matching them with recruiters. I had built this WordPress website, which I now understood how to do.
Now we see where the WordPress comes in handy. There we go.
Right? I'm like, I got this. I'm just going to build one page. Let's see what it does. And so I actually started calling recruiters, going on monsterboard.com, finding vacancies. And so I remember making a first and a second match when people weren't even asking for help, right? And then recruiters were starting to notice me because it was only so small. So it was just Spain, was hyper local. And they were like, hey, we have profiles for you. I started making money. Then I realized, hey, this is taking too much time. I wasn't trying to be more busy. I'm trying to be at the beach. So I was, trying to find a way to automate things. And so here is where kind of the technology part came in, where now I have to learn what is automation? What can I do with it?
Seb's brain is going crazy. You're just saying all the words he loves to hear. He's like, automation.
No, but this is the stuff that makes business money, right? Bro, we don't want to talk about it, but this is the real stuff that actually helps.
I told you, look at him. He's ready to go.
Absolutely. And I think that, at the time, I didn't understand how profound that was. I was just looking for a smarter way to do things. And so again, that curiosity kicked in. I was like, YouTube University, Google University, like, teach me, right? And so I remember going to codeacademy.com. I think that's the name. Just really trying to do everything, bootstrap so that I could understand what I was doing. I didn't know that was bootstrapping, by the way, at the time. So there were a lot of things I was doing naturally that now people go and do courses for. But I think that there was this natural inclination of, I first need to understand what I'm doing before this can scale, even though I didn't know that was a really profound decision to make at the time. So fast forward, now this thing is blowing up. A big recruitment agency notices me. They had already been hiring through my website. I didn't know that. I had, in the meantime, found somebody on Upwork.com, an Indian guy, to build kind of the tech in a more stable way because I was breaking the right? So they were like, he was helping me out automating. Now there's an algorithm, right? So now we have IP. So there's a lot of things happening in a very short period of time. And I remember just sitting back and thinking, am I the only one that is kind of doing it this way? Because I was reading online now, I'm starting to read about tech and startups. I'm like, people are just raising funds for this. And I'm like, I've built it like with my own money. And like people have just gone off with an idea and a pitch deck. So did I do something wrong? So I was doubting myself and I was like, this is actually really hard. And I was like, I see people chilling with Ferraris in they sweat.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sleeping. Like I'm supposed to be partying with the rest of them. And so it was really kind of this interesting phase where not knowing what you don't know, right? And so this big recruitment agency who had been probably testing the website, hiring from me, came up to me. They were like, hey, we want to buy this stuff. I was like, what stuff? There's nothing here.
oh my God. What?
It's literally a website in WordPress. Like, what? By now, obviously, it was no longer a WordPress website but just kind of understanding, again, I didn't know how valuable it was, that I had that foresight and insight that what was perceived as valuable. I didn't know how much of value that was because that's where the pain comes in. Is my first mess up. But I understood that there was value in there because obviously people were coming on the website and using it. So fast forward, they're like, hey, we want to buy it. I'm like, after investigating and finding out companies actually do that, I didn't know that. I was like, okay, this makes sense.
I'm going to be rich.
Yeah, I'm like, you know what? I did, because again, here's the thing, and I want founders to hear this. If you're building something and you do not understand the value of what you're building, the actual value and where it lies and where that can go, don't have conversations with investors. Don't have conversations with buyers until you do, because you are always going to undersell like 1,000 times. Oh, like I'm stuttering because I'm like, this is something I see so much in the work that I do today. Founders think that just because somebody thinks you're shiny and nice, they get to decide what the value is that you bring. No, you need to know the value. You need to know your business better than anybody else. You need to know your industry better than anybody else. You need to know the customer better. You need to know where the market is going to be in 10 years and value it on that. That doesn't mean you're going to say, today I'm worth $1 billion, but you're going to understand that this could be $1 billion company or not. And if it's not, then it's a different conversation you're having with yourself. But I could have kind of easily grown that to like a competitor of some of these new guys that are on the market right now, where I was doing, without knowing it, unbiased hiring because the profiles were anonymous. Skill matching, which is now being done by AI. Like I was doing all of these things. Like, give me 10 years, right?
I love that though, because I think honestly, like I feel like nowadays, especially because I get to talk to lots of founders or people who want to build, and I think one of the things that's interesting to me is your journey sounds so unconventional, but really that's the way that you should be building businesses, right? Like I think there is something about your journey where where you describe where it gets out of hand because you're doing something passionately and you're trying to actually build value rather than the other way around, right? I think too many folks focus on the end goal too much and not the way to build up that skill set to get there. Sometimes too, right? Like that journey, the journey is not linear and it's not straight. You started with WordPress, maybe, I don't know, whenever you started. And at some point, probably you weren't thinking about it, but the skill sets and the knowledge you gain there comes in and does a lot of value for this new business. So crazy impressive stuff. I love it.
Yeah, but and the reason why I had to kind of add this to the context of your first question on, where's the pain, where were like the mistakes, is because I can say this in hindsight, but obviously when I was in it, I didn't understand how important it was that I didn't know that there were other options.
What do you mean? Tell me more.
Because if I had known there was an easier route, if I had known that there were people going around raising funds for this, I wouldn't have built the business as efficiently as I did. I wouldn't have built in systems that were so fundamentally strong. A bigger company didn't feel like bothering to build it themselves, right? And so I would have just built it on fluff. I would have made a nice interface. Like, I don't even want to talk to you about the interface. It looked so bad. But
how good was this thing that you built? Because you're like, everything you were saying, I'm like, wait, what did you have in there? Because
saying it was so bad, I over-exaggerate. Like, I care about what I put in the market, but it wouldn't have been, wow. It would have been, okay, it's clear what you're doing. It's cute, right? But, I compare it to like Craigslist, who is hyper-focused from day one on functionality. All their team does every day is optimize functionality. Make sure that the users get what they're coming for and exit the building. There's nothing else. Nobody in there, like nobody can come to the founder of Craigslist and say, hey, let's now make it like, a smooth like interface with banners. He's like, no, I want a list. It's called Craigslist, right? And that's what we're doing. And so I didn't know how important it was that I didn't understand yet that there were easier ways to get money or to get an exit or to even do all of those things, because now it forced me to build it the proper way. So that's what I mean.
Where were the challenges? Because every story when building a business, I always hear like there's one point where it kind of all goes wrong. Maybe it's more towards the exit or you're building it from the beginning. But you sound like you championed your way through this and really kind of built this thing just on your own back without no hiccups, which is amazing to kind of do. But like, how hard was it to do that? You said you didn't really think about it too much, but yeah, talk.
I mean, I've skipped the parts where like website is out, payment is not capturing, people are not losing, like people are getting mismatched emails, like all of, they're like little things, but I feel like it's part of entrepreneurship. So I didn't mention that. I think the biggest thing with that startup was actually the exit. So this is the value, right? I sold that platform for like pennies to $1 because I didn't understand what I had. So that was kind of my biggest mess up. I sold it too early. I thought because somebody told me I had something, I thought I had something.
But wait, how did you wait? But when you were selling it, right? So there's two things right now, because now that in hindsight, you're thinking I sold too early and I I could have gained a lot more value. But at the time when you were selling it, did you feel like, oh my God? Or did you feel, even then, did you know that, was there a part of you that knew?
Intuitively, I knew that this wasn't it. Like the number can go up like times 5, little like, but I was really on the, if this is what I can do in such a short period of time with the resources I had, the knowledge, let's go. I'm building something else. So I was like that route. I was like, skip this little like website on recruitment. It's not even my thing. I'm a banker. Let me do something else, right? So I wasn't really sitting down and thinking, oh my God, exit. Oh my God, I'm making this money. I was like, you know what? Give me the funds. I was already thinking of how I'm going to reinvest it in something else that I'm building. So for me, it was like anything that comes in will be enough.
You know what's so interesting, that when I hear you describing that, so a few years ago, like coming up to 5 years ago, I started a small business in Ethiopia. It was like a dog food business. And when I was doing that business, right, I had it in my head that this is not going to be a big business. I had it in my head that I'm not going to be trying to scale this. This is never going to be the thing I'm going to be working on in 5 years' time. And I actually think that ended up being so helpful to me. Like, I think that gave me, there was just no pressure. I was never worried about trying to make money from this thing, because I never saw myself as being able to make a livelihood out of it. So everything I was doing was just focused on like the actual business, trying to build stuff and trying to improve on the little things. And I think if I had thought that was a really big business, I don't think I would have done it that same way. And I think there would have been a lot of things that would have held me back. So I think sometimes ignorance is bliss too.
It is. In this case, it is. But you know what happened? This is why I said it's so good that I didn't know. Because once I did have that little bit of a tiny little exit that was cute, now, and mind you, right, just for the record, like people buy and sell businesses every day, like thousands of businesses every day. You're not sex, right? It's not a, like, I don't know why the tech industry has made it like, oh, I'm exiting. Like, bro, sit down, right? But it's not that deep. It's really not that deep.
You're too gas.
It's okay, relax. So, but I feel like after that, I started building things that nobody was waiting for. I cannot tell you how many platforms I built after that that were pure, utter rubbish, like ego, like, oh, just why? Because I have a tech guy or two.
Because you were guest, didn't it? You were guest. You were like, yo, I've exited. Come on.
But my little Chanel bag, what? Nah.
Bro, you know who I am now?
I got my passport covered in like, listen, I'm now people with a passport case. Like that's the kind of level I'm on it right now. So I was like, I'm going economy premium. So now we have like this really,
bro.
I'm like,
this too
now, next space. So I'm now in the space where I'm thinking I can do everything. Like I figured this stuff out. You can't touch me. Sometimes guys in India built this. Now I'm on YouTube. Oh, build that too. Da, 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 da. So we're trying to build like 3-4 things. I don't know, from e-commerce to like to SaaS solutions to like just anything that remotely made sense. I think I even started to go into the printing business. I was doing the most. And I really thought that I was just thinking platform building. So I did have a huge learning from that in hindsight, right? Because now I realized what I had wasn't necessarily that I was helping recruiters. I was good at building platforms. So after failing business after business after that, like putting a few thousands into this one, not working, put crickets on this one, like people scamming me on that one. One tech guy took my plan and built it in India. Like there was just like...
Damn. But life knows how to make you humble, life humbles you.
Humbled with a T. And so I was like at a point where in 1 year after that, I had maybe built 4 or 5 different solutions that were half-baked, not well executed, not well researched, making me lose my money. And, with maybe 1 or 2 that could have had potential had I had focus. So for me, I think the biggest lesson in that phase was, understanding what you are uniquely good at, stay in your lane, and be the best in that.
I want to actually take it a bit further back to before your entrepreneurial journey. At 16, you became the youngest insurance advisor at your firm. And I actually remember you telling me this story when we were talking at Money 2020.
Wait. 16! Bro, how does a 16-year-old even know what insurance is?
I told you I was curious.
Nah, you didn't tell us you were a nerd.
I am still. So in school, I did pretty well. I was very smart, but I was also very insecure. And so I remember like in school, I don't know how the school system is exactly in the UK compared to here, but in the Netherlands, you go to like class 8 and then you do a big test and then they tell you what you're going to do for the next 4 years in like junior high school, I think it's called in English. And that in our school system, you have 4 levels. And so let's say level 4 is the highest, and then you have like 1 up to 3. And so on the test, I scored a level 4. But then, the school system at the time was still also very much, teachers and principals had a lot of influence still. And so if a teacher told you, you may have scored this, but I don't think you can do it, you're not going to do it. And so it happened a lot with Black people in the Netherlands and it happens all around the world. Later, I grew up, I figured it's everywhere. And so I was seeing people left, right. It was normal in kind of my space where it's like, they also put you back. Oh man, so now you're going to have to do 5 extra years. Oh, that sucks. Right. So it's like, it's a normal thing to discuss that people just decide for you how your educational is going to go. And so for me, I was told, you're not going to fit in, you're not going to make it. It's better to be with people of your kind. Why don't you become a singer? I used to sing a lot.
That's funny. I got told to become a bus driver, actually, when I was doing my career. So yeah, I don't know which one's worse.
A bus driver, sir?
Nah, they did you. Except you got done dirty, bro. You got done dirty.
I was really gifted and talented at school. I was smashing it, and it just, I don't know, it just kind of made me a bit angry when they said bus driver out of all of the things.
Bus driver.
Trying to compose one. What? They looked at all of that and they said, yep, bus driver. What?
Yeah, brother.
Sir, that's disrespectful. And you know what? I say now, like, disrespect. Obviously, like, being a singer is one of the hardest things you can do. Anyways, it wasn't an insult, but just kind of how they were trying to insult. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so I went in. My mom actually spoke up and kind of we found a way for me to still kind of do that. But I lost faith in myself. And so after the first year, I was doing so bad. I was so insecure. So anyway, financially at home, things were really going bad. And so I remember turning 16. Now I have a diploma of some sort. And I remember the plan was now you're going to go make the extra 4 years and go to university now, or like the higher
hugs something HH.
Yeah, the higher education path, and then you can do university after that, right? So it was like this extra step that I would have to take, and it was already determined. There wasn't a conversation like what you're going to do next, right? So I knew I had my diploma. You're going to have summer break. You're going to go to the next phase. However, finances were so bad. I was like, you know what? I'm working this part-time job in the evening, which was customer service for a death insurance company. So the insurance. Yeah. And so I was doing it at night, like in the evening, like just old people calling about their insurance. And I'm just like, yeah, you don't have enough money, add money. It was really bad because like that industry is, so anyway, I did that in the evenings and I was already the youngest. And so, but it paid really well. And I was just looking like, if I'm going to get out in the cold at night, like pay me something. Because all my friends, they were doing Burger King, McDonald's. And I remember I went into an interview for Burger King because everybody's like, just go and do that. So I'm like going there with my CV printed out in like I had a little map thing and I was like, really presenting myself properly, and they looked at me, they're like, yeah, it's $3 or €3 something. I was like, I'm going to pass on €3 an hour, sir? No, I didn't know like that I was being hella privileged, right? But I just knew this is not my ministry. So I wasn't called for this. I felt it in my gut. I'm like, no, I'm going to think. So everybody's like, why are you acting all bullshit? I'm like, nah, I ain't doing that. Like, pay me at least €5, right? So anyway,
At least 5 high
so
bars.
I went online and I was seeing all of these jobs that if you had like a little bit of a higher diploma, then you could earn like €5 or €6. And so I remember this job was earning like 6 or 7, something like that for the evening for young people. I applied. I did that for, I think, half a year. Then we started to get into more financial issues. I told myself, let me chip in for a while and try to convince these people to work full time. Because I was seeing people like 18, 19, they were earning like 10 or €12 an hour. I was like, what do I need to do that? Like, so I was talking to them and they were like, yeah, you have to get certified. You have to do this and you need to have your higher education degree and all of that. And I was like, bet. So what's the certification I need to do? And they were like, yeah, this is that. I was like, okay, let's go do it. So I went to study it. I did the test on my own cost. I was like, hey, I got it. So what's next? They were like, oh, we didn't tell you to do that. I was like, but I have it now. What are we going to do? Right. And so now they
Love that. Love that.
don't have a higher education. I was like, but I can do it because I've been speaking and I did the test and it's on that level. It's like practically I'm on that level. Right. So they were like, makes sense. So then I was like, but they were like, but you're too young. Like, we don't have 60-year-olds actually on their insurance. I was like, but I passed the test. Right. So there was a like on paper, I can do it. Like,
yo, what you
so then I was like, let me do the evening slot. Not a lot of people call. If I do the evening slot well, for some time, you can make up your mind. You don't even have to pay me that level yet. So I did that for reviews. They were like, I was smashing it. I was getting good reviews. Yeah, I remember it because they were so nervous. You know how they would listen in call centers, like your boss would listen for say. So they were like, hey, that was a good answer. I'm like, you were listening. So yeah, I was doing calculations. And again, so curious. I was over like delivering on the conversations because I had read everything. Like most of the people there, they knew enough. And I was like knowing everything. So I was diving into archives, calling people back. They were so sick of me. They were like, just give them the answer. No, I'm going to how to help these people. So I, was easily promoted then to insurance advisor by day, which is when the big money was. And so
the €12. Come on.
Yeah, so that's how that happened. So I did that full time for some time before I then realized if I can do this, I'm seeing these banking jobs are looking really sweet. Let's something.
Now that's crazy. I think sometimes, we kind of joked about it earlier on, but I think all of us probably have similar experiences of, being young Black folks growing up in the UK or in the Netherlands. And I think for me personally, for example, I think school, when I got older, school became really hard because I had always found school easy. I was always doing really well in it. But then you get to a certain age and there was just no one that connected with you and kind of gave you opportunity to make sense of the world and what was available. Just like Seb was talking about being a bus driver or whatever, like my worldview when I was growing up in South London was so small. Like everything around was like, when we were kids, the idea of making like £30,000 when you're older was like insane. It's like the idea of getting, you're like, wow, And so I think like sometimes as much as obviously it was hard to go through it, though, I think like that's probably also helps me personally kind of be more resilient, So I wonder how that's been for you in terms of how those experiences have shaped the person and the Kimberly you've become.
So much. And obviously we're skipping over so many years, to where I am today. But I think, for me to not stop after the first failure, after the start, exiting first, then be humbled, not once, several times.
All the time, what it sounds like.
Like, who gets up for another beating? Like, why do you do that? But it's just kind of also like you rightfully said, I don't know any better. I don't know any better than to pick myself up again. It's like, you're not going to stay down. What are you doing down? Like, nobody's coming for you. So I really felt that, I never saw failures as failures until it became nice, sexy thing to say in the tech system. It's like, I failed 10 times. Like, no, it's like, that's people have been doing this, and that person that I know has failed multiple times, and they don't actually share it as a badge of honor. They call it life. So
Facts.
for me, I always saw it as a part of life. And I was the same as you. You know, every money that I made was the biggest money I'd ever seen anybody around me make, right? And so it wasn't something that I aspired to, but it did open my eyes to what was possible. And the more I tried, the more I saw that there's a different world out there that's bigger than the little, you know, ghetto place I grew up with, which we haven't spoke about. But I think that a lot of the times when you take people out of circumstances and situations that shaped and molded them very early on to be strong, to be resilient, to have a different viewpoint, to have to vie for yourself, to find different pathways. You take them out and you put them into a space where there's an array of possibility. In my case, that's tech. Like, how are you not going to do crazy stuff? Like, something is bound to happen, you know? And so I think that it was really a fortunate collision of putting somebody with the right mindset. Let me tell you something. I got into investing and VC and tech and all of those stuff, understanding that it's never about the money. It's never about the money. The success rate of companies versus companies that are not successful has never been because one had money and one didn't.
Facts.
There's always a multi-layered factor of who is the founder, who's the team, what is their drive, what's their proximity to the problem. There's all of these factors that make money a game changer, but in a way, it's more of an accelerator than it was something that was not inevitable. Like success was inevitable.
You had these crazy experiences, but you're also a thought leader and you share a lot of like your philosophy with people online, and you're kind of touching a little bit on it there that money might not be like the defining factor of your startup success. So I kind of wanted to just quickly touch on balancing purpose, profit, and sustainability. And you've discussed about the concept of camels versus unicorns in the startup world. Could you tell us a bit more about why people should be camels rather than unicorns, and elaborate more on this concept?
Man, Dubai really did a number on you, huh?
Man, like camel, they kicked me. No, but actually, you know, when you think about it, and I have always, because I didn't come from kind of the same path that a lot of these tech startup founders did, I always came with a different perspective into the field. So my field was never, you know, go to a tech school, make buddies with people, have a friend or an uncle or somebody who's going to give you your first little round. Like, I didn't understand that path. What I understood was that people make business solving problems, period. So for me,
Yes, important. That was important, man. Facts.
So coming into that space, I didn't understand that my viewpoint or perspective was so different and that not everybody was seeing it the same way. Like, we're all in our bubbles. I have my bubble. You know, we all have our bubbles. So I was always preaching as a consultant now, helping startups. We skipped over this because of time, I'm sure. But I'll just tap into, I had a startup platform for African entrepreneurs to collaborate and build online code to the Entrepreneur Network. It was mostly tech startups that grew into a platform where investors could also start investing in startups on the African continent. And, you know, like-minded founders on the African continent could find people to help them in the context of where they were. Now, I was already in that space now, preaching, building a sustainable business model, not the sustainability that's sexy today, but I'm meaning like, how do you make this thing last? That's sustainability I'm talking about. How do you build a solid foundation? That's the sustainability I'm talking about. How do you actually build something that scales over time and not just when it's hyped or when it's in trend? So I was already having these discussions because the founders were building things like that on my platform. So I was learning from them that, hey, they're not building things because it's cute. Like, they're building because they actually want to have 24/7 light in the school, or they want to have, you know, access to a tractor that works 24/7. So here's a tractor that's autonomously driving on solar panels. Thank you very much. Right. So it was really that kind of innovation that helped me understand that, hey, you need to build something that may not grow as fast, but will outlast the others. And that can still be a multi-billion-dollar market, especially if we're talking about Africa. And so the idea of a camel is that a camel can do sprints like any other, like put it next to a horse. When it goes like.
Yeah, the camel races are wild. You see,
Camel-
them camel races are crazy.
Camel looks chill, like he's chill. As like with his bags of water, he's like licking, eating a leaf. You think he's chill, and then suddenly he just takes off.
Boom.
But he takes calculated runs and sprints. He knows how much water reserve he has, reach cash flow. He understands where to go to the next well. He understands the climate that he is. He needs to be resilient for that. So their skin is built for it. And this is what I mean when I say building a camel in the long run is going to be a better bet than focusing on building a unicorn, because I think unicorns are great for what they are. They should be unique. There should be one or two of them in every industry to kind of show the pathway of what's possible. But we can't all be having unicorns.
That's one of the biggest myths right now in the tech world as well. Because I think, like, to your point, Kimberly, like, I feel like even VC started out as a way to back really exciting ideas, not as a way to back all the conventional ideas, right? Like nowadays, one company finds product market fit in some niche area. Tomorrow morning, there's $100 billion flowing into it to create and so I think the VC world is coming in for a reckoning. As I think we kind of seen some of that already happening. And that's why Africa is super interesting. All of these emerging markets in general are super interesting. It reminds me a little bit of what we were talking about as also just founding and being forced to found something for to solve rather than to build a business. I think there's a real difference there when you're trying to solve for something rather than trying to get to somewhere for no reason. Yeah, that's crazy, man. The VC world is super interesting.
Yeah, I think we've gone full circle with the VC and just seeing what happens when people are just building for the sake of building. And I sometimes feel that we've solved a lot of the problems and that people are just building to find, they're kind of building for VC fit, right? And now what happens when AI comes into the game and you're starting to get AI agents and so on and so forth? For me, I think we need to start looking where there are more problems that need to be solved. And Africa is just one of those places, I remember going to school in Kenya and just seeing just like how many problems that there were there. And I always thought from back in the day, like it would be really interesting to give loads of people in Africa like iPads and give them access to internet and what that will kind of do and what problems that could kind of solve. With the sort of advent of AI now, when we're hearing about DeepSeek and making AI super cheap, now I think what happens if Africans have access to AI for a really, really cheap price? What problems could they start to begin to solve? And that kind of scares and it kind of excites me. So I'm always looking at the kind of continent as the future because there are so many problems that kind of need to be solved. And I think it's just an interesting concept and thought, because in VC, we don't talk about Africa much. It's all about Europe. Even the VC fund that I was working for, we just invest in Europe, or once you build your startup in Europe, you go to the US and so on and so forth. But some of the problems are huge in Africa and they're huge markets. So should we really, as people of the diaspora, be thinking about the problems that we should be solving back home?
I mean, I would definitely not call it an obligation, but I do think that it is our birthright if we do. And I think that, for one, there's two sides to this, right? Yes, we have solved some problems in the world, but yet there are like 1,000 more that are probably more urgent that we haven't solved for the sake of some of the problems that other people find more important. And so it's always been who has had proximity to power and or money, who decided what problem was urgent enough. And this is why you see that for a long time, we've solved superficial things, creating more problems, right? So actually going to the root cause of things, like now, all of a sudden, it's not all of a sudden, but looking at health, why is health coming up? Why is climate coming up? Because we sacrificed our health before to do built things that were not good for us, and now we have to fix it. It's the same with the climate. We sacrificed the planet and the climate for things that we didn't actually need. We were trying to solve problems with superficial solutions. Now we have to rein it back because we created more problems that are actually problems. And so we have the opportunity to actually leapfrog this whole process that the West has gone into and say, hey, okay, I see what you did there. We have all the minerals. We have all the resources. There's nothing, almost nothing the African continent does not have in its bones to solve one or two problems that we have in the world, especially in health, but also in other industries. And so it's not that we don't have, it's about what is the application, right? Who is going to learn how to apply these things and own them? One of the reasons I built Apreneur Network was because I wanted the things that were being built for Africa to stay in Africa. And so you can come and invest, fine with that, but it's staying here. Don't tell them to go and set up, shop in Silicon Valley. No, we're not. Actually, we're based in Rwanda. Thank you very much. I think that it's so important that we start applying the whole Africa to the world narrative when we do decide to build, right? What are some of the things that we can build from our perspective? Because we have a unique perspective to the world. There are things that you have seen things that we've been doing for centuries in African culture. People just coming around now talking about, I figured out how to clear my skin, or like I'm doing this ritual. Like, bruh, go read our wall paintings for that. Like, we've been doing this. It's really that simple. Like, how are we going to apply and really learn to respect the history, the value that we bring to the world, and put a value stamp on that?
I love that. I think that's crazy powerful. And Kimberly, we've been talking, first of all, you've done so much, you've built so much already. You've even exited some startups, but I know that you're not nowhere near done just yet. So what's the big problem you're working on now? What's the big vision you're chasing right now?
My gosh, I actually had an epiphany this month, like the month of February, and you guys are the first, that I'm going to share this with. But I realized that everything that I've done up to this point where I thought, oh, this has to do with entrepreneurship, or this has to do with innovation, or it has to do with tech, I applying what I had inside of me everywhere a little bit. Not fully, but a little bit, only to find out that what the impact that I'm looking to make and the things that I need to do are bigger than any sector or industry. Like, it transcends, solving things in fintech or health tech or tech as a whole. It transcends even business. It's about how are we looking to the future? Who's going to decide who gets to lead? Who is going to decide what we're going to work on the next 10, 20 years. And this all comes back to leadership. So for me, I am now going to kind of go into a next level. Like, whilst I said it, I was like, level unlocked. Like, I like to play games, but it's like unlocking a next level of what impact looks like. So it's really about leadership. And so I am now looking to, look at how are we going to reframe how we make decisions instead of, going the lower ranks of, what's already out there. How can we incrementally change things? How are we making decisions on what we're building, why we're building, who is building, who gets to build what and for who? That's a completely different conversation that we're talking about. It's like looking back and saying, hey, okay, AI, great. Who's building? Who is getting to decide what we apply it to? Because AI is going to be, and it's already becoming a commodity. Because one thing that I said about value, right? Technology is only as valuable as its application. And so once we haven't found an application for it that's valuable, it doesn't kick off. This is why AI has been in the space for 20, 30 years. And only when it became generative, now all of a sudden we're putting a value stamp on it. But it's been there. Now, the next phase is, okay, what is the actual application that will benefit humankind? This is a completely different conversation you need to be having, because now you're going to reverse engineer what AI would look like if we apply it to different fields and not just, let's use it a little bit for health or a little bit for this. No, actually, what is the maximum capacity that we can take this thing if we include the voices that need to be included? So yeah. It's still grand, but it's very clear for me that my path forward is going to be about leading the conversations on where we're headed, with business, with how we build things, with how we live together as human beings on this planet, whether it is in finance or tech or whatever. It's really going to be leadership and reframing that.
That's so powerful. I feel like, I think that the world of technology nowadays, we think technology is non-emotive. We think it's just descriptive, but it's not. Technology is human made, right? It affects all of our lives. And it's so important nowadays that we actually start properly putting in that foundational thinking about what we're building, how we're building it, who we are building it for, before it gets too late. I'm glad that you're thinking about that, Kimberly, for real. So I appreciate you sharing that with us too. What's next, Seb?
End the podcast on a quick 10-10 quick fire questions segment. Now we're going to ask you 10 quick fire questions and you got to give us an answer without even thinking about it too much. We're talking 30 seconds or under. So if you're ready, we'll start off with the first question. What is your must-read book for anyone chasing the bag?
The Year of Yes, Shonda Rhimes.
Love that. What's the biggest money lesson you've had to learn the hard way?
Money doesn't buy understanding.
What is your number one personal productivity hack?
Shut it all down.
Shut it all down, yeah? Crazy. If you lost everything today, what's the first move you'd make?
Look at what I know and build from there.
What's the worst financial advice you've ever received?
Buy the Trump coin.
Okay, once you secured the bag, what was your guilty pleasure splurge? What did you spend the bag on?
I wish I had one, man. I'm going to say food.
What's the boldest risk you've ever taken to get ahead?
Boldest. Randomly moved to Dubai while on holiday.
10 minutes with any business mogul, dead or alive, who would it be? You got to pick one.
There's so many. Emma Green.
Love it. Okay, and then the last one. Finish the sentence. The key to securing the bag is...
Yourself.
And there we go.
There were a few tough ones. Actually, okay, Emma Green, yes, but also...
No do-overs. You already done it. Oh, no. Oh, come on, let's hear it. Who was it?
Chris Donnelly.
Chris Donnelly, okay. We'll allow that. We'll allow that for the gender equality. One each. Kimberly, it's been an absolute pleasure. Had so much fun talking to you and just hearing all those insights. It's been a great conversation. Appreciate you joining us.
That you've talked about, from starting businesses in Africa to your personal story to going into insurance, and just the lessons that you've taught us about building and exiting businesses. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you for helping us get to the bag.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Kimberly, how do our community keep up with you? Where can they find you?
I mean, I'm mostly on LinkedIn, so follow me and link with me there. I'd love to connect there. And I also have a podcast nowadays, 5-minute bite size, called Unlocked with Kimberly. So find me on Spotify.
Amazing.
That is a wrap.